Okay, so you should have me loud and clear here. I'm hoping that everyone can hear and see me. It's great to have so many of you online again tonight. Obviously, we are living in some very, very interesting times, and from our perspective, we wanted to share some knowledge. I think the most important thing that I wanted to come across this evening, before we get started, is that tonight is not around the negativity. I think there's enough of that in South Africa in terms of what's happening at the moment, and I don't think that we South Africans need any kind of extra reminding of what is or isn't going on. So really tonight the focus is going to be around solutions. And I'm going to share with you some of the experiences I've had over the last 20 years in terms of how one can actually deal with what is actually happening in the market, and equally hopefully going to be able to answer lots of questions. So my point being is that if you haven't been on a webinar before, there's a little question box and you can just go in and type. So let's just get started and see, where's everyone from? Let's see if you can figure out where the question box is. So it should be in the top right corner for you. And yeah, where are you from? I'm interested to actually see where different people are from. And let's see if everyone knows where the chat box is. So I can see a couple of people are telling me Cape Town, Durban, Waterfall, Cape Town, Pretoria, Polokwane, Cambridge. Wow. Novo, Stellenbosch, Hilton, America, and Durban. So we've got people coming from all different backgrounds. So I think really the one thing that's important tonight is that from my perspective, I'm going to be sharing with you just some of the knowledge. I'm not trying to give you financial advice. And really from my perspective, it's sharing the knowledge as to what I believe as an investor. My opinions are not necessarily 100% right or wrong. They're my opinions. And they're also backed up by 20 years worth of experience and having learned from some of the best and most influential investors. Really one of the privileges of investing and helping people invest offshore is that I've had the privilege of helping some of the wealthiest people, not only in South Africa, but around the world invest. And when you do that, you'd have to be a bit of an idiot to not notice trends. And so, when you consider the next one, again, I'm not going to focus on it too much tonight, but I am just going to touch on the 5 most dangerous trends facing South African citizens today. But most importantly, I want to basically provide people with solutions as to how they can have wealth preservation, growth, a plan B, and peace of mind with regards to you and your family. As I said to you already, tonight's webinar is all about focus, and most importantly, it's about focus on solutions. I'm very, very passionate, and the team is very, very passionate about empowering people and helping them come up with solutions rather than just the negativity and being caught up in the negativity of what's happening. I think in terms of why you're here, I wanted to just really kind of get a sense as to what people's ideas were, what they wanted out of tonight's webinar. So are you looking for investments and returns? Is it a rand hedge? Are you looking for assets and wealth preservation? Is it risk diversification? Is it an insurance policy? Plan B? Is it immigration? Do you want to know about EB5 and Cyprus and Mauritius and Australia and some of the other places that people immigrate to? Are you looking for long-term investment? Should you move one day? Do you want peace of mind, knowing that you have options for your family and really, no matter what the future holds, you've got plans as a global citizen, or is it just basically Zoomer proofing? And again, I want to get people into acting tonight and being part of this webinar. So if you thought you were coming along passively to kind of sit there and kind of just listen to me, you're going to see that I'm going to be actively engaging you this evening, getting you to switch your brains on. So I've kind of, I had 10, I've brought them down to 5, just in terms of some of the reasons. I'm interested in what people are interested in, why they're here. If you can please go and vote on the poll, it'll get you used to kind of getting online, getting active. This is the way webinars work. They're not one-way communication. We can actually communicate in both directions. On the back of that, I've also got a little question box so I can see if people are asking, where and how. So I can see there's already a question from a guy called Jay. He said, what's EB5? EB5 is the way to invest in America, and I will explain it to you, but basically you can invest $500,000 and you can get a green card for you and your family and any of your siblings or children that are under the age of 21. So that should give people. So I can see that 44% of people have voted. Tonight we're gonna be active. We're gonna have lots of polls and questions and getting people's attention. So yeah, I think Jay really, in terms of the EB5, you can get citizenship through investment. So one of the things I like about America is that you can invest in good quality assets. I'm going to talk a lot about this later, but the book I wrote, Property Going Global, and let me just close that poll there quickly. the book I wrote, Property Going Global, really basically in chapter 10, I actually analyzed 16 different markets around the country, around the world, whether you talk about Mauritius, Cyprus, Malta, America, England, Australia, and all the other places that South Africans look to go and buy properties and ultimately get passports. And really, for me, there's many of them you need to avoid, particularly if you're looking for a good investment. But there are some good opportunities, and I can talk about that a little bit later. So thanks for those of you who engaged. Let's just look at those 5 most dangerous trends. So I think really, when one considers the stress that a lot of South Africans live under, they battle to fully understand it. Good example of that, I was on a course with my wife in Florida in December last year, and she couldn't believe that you could actually leave the bag in this big convention center and go outside and get a drink or go to the toilet because things weren't stolen. It's quite amazing what happens in the first world with regards to that. But I think just the stress of the last week, will sum it up, pretty well for people. The political and economic instability, I don't think anything more has to be said about that. The currency devaluation, it reminds me of a time when Henny actually said he was standing in Bloemfontein. So Henny is our business partner and chairman. He's a very, very successful and wealthy business person. He turned 60 last year. And he said, when you consider how the rand has devalued over the last couple of years, he's literally lost 25% of his net wealth, and he hasn't actually done anything. Literally, literally the rand has just changed it for him. So, I use a website called xe.com, and you can actually see what's happened here with the rand. So it hit a peak here of 13.85, and you can see what's happened, and even a slight kind of rebound. If you look at it over the last day, you can see where we're at. If you look at it over the last week, you can see what's happening here. You can see over the last month and the last year. So you can see here, how it was covering. It was the best performing currency in the emerging markets, and then we decided to throw a hand grenade in our own boat. Then this is the last 2 years, the last 5 years. So it's really interesting. When we started investing in America back in 2012, we were sitting at these rates. It was kind of, even lower than 7 rand. It was 6.50, and we were helping people invest. And what's fascinating is the rand has halved, and the assets have gone up quite substantially. And what's fascinating for me is that, in 2013, around this point here, the rand was sitting at 8.80, and a guy called James Painter, and I can see his son Alex is online tonight, was doing a roadshow. Now, he actually wrote chapter 2 of this book, which is all about currency. And he's got ways of basically looking at the currency and deciding and helping people forecast rather than based on gut feel. And over the years I've worked with him, he's had more than an 80% accuracy in terms of actually predicting where the rand's going and forecasting. And what was fascinating back in March 2013 is he said within 3 months the rand will go over 10 rand to the dollar. And with about an 80 to 90% probability. I think it was 90% probability. And what was fascinating, there were hundreds of people that were part of that roadshow over that period in March, and less than 20 took action. And literally within 3 weeks, the rand went over 10 rand to the dollar and has never ever recovered. We had one guy that's one of the most respected property people in the country that actually bought a house in America at 8.88 to the dollar. He phoned his bank. His bank told him that he was crazy and that by Christmas it would be back at 8 rand to the dollar. And every year I remind him of that little story. So, really for me in terms of wealth preservation, just as a matter of interest here, who would like to do a webinar with James Painter and really get an update as to where he's at? Because obviously there's been some quite significant changes that have happened over the last 7 days, and in terms of the the implications with regards to his modeling. So just as a matter of interest, who would be interested in hearing from James and his thoughts on where the rand is going, what is going to happen with the rand, both in the short term, the next couple of weeks, the medium term, the next couple of months, but more importantly, the next couple of years. What's going to happen to your wealth? So I can see here that there's lots of people that would like to hear from James. I can see that Brian's saying he's excellent. Okay, great. So your wish is my command, and so if you guys all participate this evening, I'm glad to tell you that next Tuesday, James and I have agreed that we'll be doing a webinar on the rand, where it's at, and what the future is in terms of all the implications and equally junk status, etc. So I'm glad to tell you that that we've already actually organized that. And again, it was listening to customer feedback. A lot of customers had already been asking in terms of where we're at and what is actually happening. So when one takes currency devaluation, I'm going to talk quite a lot tonight about wealth preservation. You know, really when you're from Zimbabwe or Russia or Argentina, you need to really understand the impact of rand or currency devaluation and ultimately the impact on wealth preservation. And then probably the one that scares me most is that it caused me to actually write a book where, you know, the research that came out in 2010 was more than 80% of people that invest offshore actually lose money. And I decided to write a book about it because I was so sick and tired of watching South Africans be sold absolute rubbish by agents that had no idea what they were doing. And I decided to write a book about it because I fundamentally believe that to be successful, there's only two things that you need to be able to do. You need to be able to get the right information, and then secondly, you need to have the right partners. And a lot of tonight's webinar will be around you understanding where to get the right information, what are the right questions to ask based on, you know, the last 20 years. I started investing offshore in 1999, so 2017, so it's effectively 18 years ago that I started on this journey. And I really want to share with you some of my own learnings. So just in my interest here, what does it mean to be a global citizen to you? So just give me some thoughts around what does it mean? Just think about it. What is a global citizen? You know, is there such a thing as a passport to be a global citizen? What does it actually mean to you? Let's just see what people's thoughts are. I'm fascinated. If you can't get this wrong, remember, if you want to just type it in there, I'd be interested to know what different people's opinions are of what a global citizen is. So Rob has said many, many options. What else does it mean? Come on, ladies and gentlemen, you can't get this wrong. I know that it's 7:30 or 7:15, whatever, on a Tuesday evening. The more you interact, the more you're going to get out of this. The more you use your brain. So Gunther said ability to live in. Oh, they're coming in thick and fast now. The ability to live in a country of your choice, investing your money in first world countries. To laugh when you look at the SABC News on TV. Having a stake in various countries, to be able to move around the world unrestricted, to live where you want, when you want, and be able to invest anywhere around the world. Someone who earns first world currency, wealth on equal terms, investment outside South Africa, earn income in first world currencies and choose where you want to live, wealth preservation and freedom, hedge against the rand. One has access and can participate in global opportunities. Sure, there's lots here. Hedge against taxation, someone who lives around the world and earns money all over the world. More security, actually, contributing wealth to other economies and gaining return of these. Access to other markets. Someone who can go anywhere at any time because they have many options in what they want to live. So, yeah, there's some fascinating things. You know, for me, really, when I look at it, it comes down to just a couple of words. The first one for me is freedom. So it's the freedom to have the choice to invest wherever you want to invest, to be able to send your children to whatever school you want to, whatever university you want to be able to live in any country you want. And, you know, quite frankly, if you want to donate money to a charity, or you want to go on a skiing holiday to France, or send your kids to Disney World, for me, that is what it means to be a global citizen. It's about the freedom of choice. And our passion and our purpose is to share with people how they can become a global citizen and how they can have the freedom. And I think, you know, Jaco's not online at the moment. He's in America. But, you know, he started on this journey over 4 years ago. And, you know, he's a seriously proud dad at the moment, because one of the things that he really wanted was his son to go and be able to play, you know, pro golf in America. And he's just managed to get a scholarship to America and goes there in August. You know, we had another client that bought a house and wanted his son to be able to go over and do motocross in America and ultimately be a professional there, you know, and their investing has enabled them to be able to do it. So those are the type of things that, for me, it's a personal choice, but it's the freedom to make them. Some of the other ones for me are peace of mind. So, you know, being able to not have huge concern. I'm not going to lie to you. I think you would be probably a little bit ill if you didn't think that the events over the last week have been dramatic. But, you know, still for me, it does give me tremendous peace of mind that we do have businesses, you know, that are international, that are first world, and equally that we've got assets that are in first world countries paying us a first world income. And for me, that's the peace of mind that we talk about for both ourselves and our families. Wealth preservation, we're going to go into more tonight, and then equally time time for a plan B. And I think what I've learned that really is that a lot of people, and particularly if you're an entrepreneur, you'll always have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, and if you're a good entrepreneur, you've got right up to like a plan M. What most people don't realize is that that's the whole scenario planning behind Clem Sunter, is that you have the ability to be able to adapt, and no matter what happens, you've got a plan. And I think a good example of that was Hilda was telling me that her and her wealth advisor, I don't know if you've seen Garth speak, we've had him speak a couple of times, both live to our wealth partners, and I think we've done one webinar with him. But apparently they've been planning for this Pravin Gordhan to be fired for over a year. And for me, that's the type of example of a plan B. So really the question tonight is, how do you create and protect wealth? And the question is, do you want to be stuck by playing within Zoomer's antics, or be a global citizen? And I think really tonight that is the focus. That is really what we want to share with people tonight. That is what we want to empower people and provide them with solutions. So I'm not going to go again into too much detail around this good gentleman and what he's doing to our country. What I do think is really important, though, is that if you want to kind of differentiate between what Zuma's doing and being tied to South Africa, and possibly even being used things like being a Rand prisoner or becoming a global citizen, the way to be successful is actually really simple. What you need to do is copy what successful people are doing. So it's one of the fastest ways to success. You don't need to go and reinvent the wheel. You literally copy what the wealthiest are doing. And the wealthiest of the wealthy have for many, many years been investing overseas, and equally they've been investing in direct property. Now, the challenge that everyone has is that when you look at the statistics, 49% of the world's wealth is held in property, and yet only 12.9% of the world's population actually has access to property. Now, I pretty much guarantee that everyone on this webinar already has access to property. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't have access to a laptop and you wouldn't be able to be on this webinar. But what's fascinating in the Western world, so that's taking into account England, America, and Australia, less than 1% of people actually retire wealthy at the age of 65. So everyone works, as hard as they possibly can, and yet when they retire at the age of 65 in the Western world, they actually go on and are poor. And there's a great book that I just wanted to get you here, which is Unshakable by Tony Robbins, and it talks about all the problems with the current financial industry and all the fees that are being charged. And as an example, if you have 1% extra in fees, it equates to 10 years worth of retirement income, okay? And what's fascinating is that most people try and, rely on funds or REITs, and what they don't realize is that 96% of the average funds don't actually beat the market over a 15-year period. So go check it out. All the research is here in this book. Tony Robbins, by the way, is recognized by Accenture as one of the top 50 most influential business people, literally on the planet. So if you don't trust me, that's fine, but you should be trusting people that are recognized globally. And the reason is that the old system is broken. If you take the investor and you take the investment, there are literally 16 middlemen on average between the investor and the investment, and they are diluting the fees. The system's trust is broken. There's very little transparency, and the high fees and low returns are a cause of no alignment. And really what this means is that if people disagree with me, if people want to argue with me about whether it's better, whether the old system is working, I just ask them to look at the facts. I just look at the last 100 years, and I basically say, well, why, if everyone's working so hard, are the facts so abysmal in terms of where we are? The other thing that you need to do if you want to get wealthy is you've got to really understand the value chain. You've got to understand where you fit in the value chain. So when it comes to property, the first, and I'm oversimplifying it here, but I want to just keep it clean and easy. The first step is land zoning. The second one is a developer. So they'll take a piece of land and they'll have it rezoned, and then a developer will actually build something. Then comes the investor. So they actually put a tenant in it. They get an income stream. Now that could be a shopping center, it could be a house. It doesn't matter. They take a product and they create an income stream out of it. Then the number one way that people actually exit, so really wealthy people in real estate, what is the number one way that they actually exit? How do they make money? Who do they sell to? So I'm purposely keeping quiet for a while so that you have to think about it. Whether you type the answer or not, I want you to think about it. And the answer is to the funds and REITs, because funds and REITs are out there buying income. And so the real value creation happens at these three stages: land zoning, developer, and investor. And then the way that they exit is they sell on to a fund or REIT. Now, who comes next? Who comes next in the value chain? Now, this doesn't matter if it's local or international. Who comes next? It's you. It's you and me. It's us guys that then go through the financial industry, through all the financial planners, all the middlemen that ultimately will put us in contact with the investment. What we don't realize is that we would get involved in mainly a financial instrument. As a matter of interest, who here would like a webinar on the difference between REITs, funds, syndication, fintech, crowdfunding, and direct investment? Who would like to understand that? Who would like a webinar, and even more importantly, who would like a white paper on the difference and the difference in terms of returns and fees and the bottom line? So if you don't say yes, then you won't be invited. That's my way of teasing you to get participating. So just in terms of the value chain, the land developers are generally looking at 30% plus. The developers are looking at 25% plus. I'm talking internal rate of return. The investors are generally looking at 20% plus internal rate of return. The REITs and funds are generally looking at an income of 5 to 8%, because that's what they're happy to pay you. In America, as an example, at the moment, the current American REITs are paying between 4.5% and 5%. Okay, so remember that later when I start to show you the type of returns we're making in direct property. And then this person, whether it's you or me, is sitting there wondering why we're battling to beat inflation. Why when I work all my life and I get to 65, can I not even beat inflation and retire wealthy? Forget financially independent, because that's actually 25% poorer than the day you finished working. If you think that I'm talking rubbish, there's a great article on LinkedIn that I wrote, which is out of the business day, and it talks about Robosis, who's the developer, and effectively selling on to Billion. And sorry, the other way around. Billion is the developer selling on to Robosis, and I'm not going to go into detail here, but you can basically see here that Robosis Property Fund is purchasing. Sorry, it's not very clear tonight, but buying the property from the Billion Group. This is all on LinkedIn, so just go to my profile on LinkedIn. You can read the entire thing, and it's actually talking about how they're overpaying for assets, how these assets haven't actually got income streams, and the actual net worth. And what's really interesting here, this is exactly what I'm talking about. So this is a developer that becomes an investor. They do something what's called seasoning the rents, and then they sell it on to a fund. What's just fascinating here is that it's all happening under the same roof. So the Billion Property Group is the developer, and they're also selling on to Robosis, the property fund, and it's all owned by the same owners. So it's a classic example. Now, exactly the same as when you get in an Uber, why Uber has been such a significant change for all of us is that you no longer have to phone a middleman. You don't have to phone the taxi. You don't have to sit here with your phone and get on the phone and phone someone who's sitting in a call center, and then that call center person has to phone a taxi, and then that taxi has to find you with a map, and you have to find that taxi, and the whole time it's happening between you and a call center. And if anyone who's been through this will know that this could take 2 hours. It's very frustrating, very expensive. Then when you get in a taxi, there's a good chance that they're going to take you the longer route so that you end up spending more money. There's no transparency, and certainly your interests aren't aligned. In terms of the taxi's interest is to try and charge you as much as possible. Yours is to get there as quick as possible, paying the smallest amount of money. And the taxi owner is there to try and incentivize the taxi to obviously earn as much money as possible. And really all that Uber did was take that all out of the equation, allow me to take my phone like this and literally log into an app, and you should be able to see Uber coming up, which is probably an app you all recognize now. And if I wanted to catch a Lyft, other than the fact I live in Knysna, I would be able to catch a Lyft now. There's no Uber in Knysna, so technology hasn't come to this. Well, really for me, technology does three things. It cuts out the middleman, it cuts out the costs, the majority of the costs, and equally it increases the trust, the transparency, and ultimately the accessibility. And when you think of Uber, you know, only the wealthiest of the wealthy had access to chauffeur-driven cars. Now everyone's got access with a phone. And all that we're doing with the technology perspective is that we're basically allowing people to go up the value chain. So if you want to invest in our growth products, then effectively you're investing with a developer. So as an example, 0 to 1 is a co-development with the developer, or Kensington, which was in Australia, is a co-development. Or if you want to be an investor and focus on income, then you can get involved in our income projects, and that's where you get involved. And in simple terms, you go right up the value chain. And a good example of that is that, like I said to you, the American funds and REITs at the moment are paying a 4.5% to 5% return. Our investors in our income product in America are all earning north of 8%, and I'm going to show you how that actually works in terms of where we actually are. So just quickly, I've never tried this before, so I'm quite interested as to how it actually works. And in terms of the handouts here, apparently I'm supposed to be able to share a video with you, but I'm just trying to see how it actually works here. I tell you what, I'm just going to play it directly off my phone, because really for me, this is a great video the team made, which sums up who we are and how technology is really enhancing the process for people.
Real estate. It's one of the most reliable and profitable investments in the world. 49% of the world's wealth is held in real estate. It's what built the wealth of kings and aristocrats. But investing in real estate for the average person is simply out of reach. It's a playground normally reserved for millionaires or billionaires. Only the top 0.1% of people own and invest in commercial real estate. There's a wealth gap across the globe that's pricing out the middle class from investing in one of the best ways to build and preserve wealth, which will enable them to give their children a better future. Studies prove that children who grow up in households who have stable financial futures do better in life. That's a fact. But too many people don't have access to it. We want to change that. Let's open up the opportunity to people who work hard, manage their finances wisely, and need a place to invest for their family's future. What we're doing at Wealth Migrate is exactly that. It's simple, but incredibly powerful. We're eliminating the typical barriers to entry when investing in real estate, whether that's knowledge, money, experience, or access. Access to what the top investors know and are able to invest in, but that you can't. We're giving people the opportunity to invest globally in commercial real estate through the internet, right alongside high-profile investors, and earn the same returns and monthly dividends. We're using the internet and our technology to give everyone access to real estate investment opportunities you've never had access to before. By giving you access to global real estate investing, our goal is to empower 1 billion people by 2020 and close the wealth gap that currently exists. You don't need to invest huge amounts of money to become a part owner of a project. It levels the playing field and helps developers start new projects. It's a win-win for everyone. We've published 19 books, including New York Times bestsellers. And then there's our technology, our secret sauce that helps you make smart investments. Now it's your time to grab this opportunity. Do it now with our trusted, secure real estate investment platform. Visit www.wealthmigrate.com to see what amazing opportunities are available right now.
So that's just a cartoon, and we can share that with people if they're interested. I think really what that cartoon really showed you is that to invest in real estate, whether it's local or global, is very difficult. People are stuck in country. There are massive barriers to entry. Getting access to good quality opportunities, just really doesn't exist. And what most people don't, I always joke with people, but when Donald Trump gets a good deal, do you get the call? And unfortunately, if you're not getting the call, and you're not getting the good quality calls in America, and you're not getting the good quality calls in Australia, and you're not even getting the good quality calls in South Africa, that is a major problem. And then when you want to go global, it just gets complicated at a level most people don't understand, between legal, banking compliance, deal quality, trust, partners. Because of this, technology is changing the space globally. And there's over 250 different platforms. They're disrupting a $13 trillion industry. The only problem is that every single one of them is local. So if you go to Fundrise or Realty Mogul, unless you've got a social security number in America, you cannot actually invest. And a lot of people say to me, well, what's the difference between local and offshore? And I've been doing this presentation now for since 2004. So I can get into as much detail as you want, or as little detail as you want, and maybe we need to kind of come up with maybe a beginner's class and an advanced class. But just in simple levels, the difference between local and offshore for me is that the returns are often higher in the short term. So it looks like your returns are higher. So your capital growth is higher, and your rental yields are higher. One does need to take into account long-term currency, because it does have an impact. Which one's harder? Well, local is definitely easier. You know the market. You can walk over there and kick the door. Offshore is definitely tougher. Peace of mind? Well, local, certainly doesn't give me peace of mind. Certainly when things have been happening like they have over the last week. And then offshore, very much so gives me peace of mind, particularly when you invest in the first world. I had a great example this morning. We've got a problem with one of the developers in Australia that's not abiding by the contract. And talking to the clients who are out of Germany, they're like, oh yeah, we're going to have to get lawyers involved and sue. I'm like, no, we don't. It's really easy. There's like the equivalent of the Estate Agents Affairs Board. The only difference is it actually works, and we won't need any legal documents to get this sorted. In terms of financial family planning, local, maybe. I'm not 100% convinced by that. I still own 3 farms in Zimbabwe, so I am biased. Offshore, definitely. Rand hedge, locally, no. Offshore, yes. And diversification, locally, no. Offshore, yes. Now, is one better or worse than the other? No. But as an investor, you need to have a broad-based investment strategy, and you need to understand the pros and cons to each in terms of where you are. The reason that people lose 80%, so 80% of people that invest offshore actually lose money. The first one, and I learned this off Henny Besaidnout, is that they make crisis investments, both with currency and assets. So whether it's assets, shares, and products. So what that means is that the Rand falls out of bed, and people panic. They get on an airplane, they fly to London, they say, I'm going to buy a property. And I always say to someone, if an Englishman arrived in Cape Town in 1 week, do you think they'd find a good investment, yes or no? The point is that I can prove to you 50 times over, whenever I've seen people make crisis investments or react, they make mistakes. They don't get the right information. So when they fly to London, they just like to hear what the estate agent tells them, and unfortunately it's wrong. They get the wrong partners. So they work with a friend of a friend, or their brother or their sister that knows everything about the property market but is an accountant by day, and or whatever. It's not their speciality or their focus, and they make mistakes. They don't understand the cash flows and management. So 20% of buying a property is actually just buying the property. 80% is actually executing on the property. And yet most people don't know that. They think it's just about buying the property. They work with companies without local and international offices. So how often do I see people flying over here and doing presentations and telling you the world, and it sounds wonderful, but they don't have local or international offices? We've had an office in this country since 2004. They underestimate the after sales and the costs. So the property looks good on paper, but they don't actually understand all the implications of investing and tax and structuring and accountants and all that. And then, something that's really important when you're investing offshore is they buy off plan with long lead times and then can't get financing. The world changes, and it changes quickly in my experience. Some of the financial advantages of international property, well, you get wealth preservation, you get a Rand hedge, you get a first world income and assets. So it's interesting, these graphs on the right-hand side, I pulled out of my book. I particularly kept them the same as in the book, but it's just research that I did on looking at Australian yields versus South African yields, and you can see the Australian yield in yellow and the South African yield in red. So forget about capital growth. You can see that that's significantly better in terms of the yields that one gets. I can guarantee you it's the same with my London properties that I bought back in 2002. You get tax advantages. Again, depending on the country, I can go into more details on that. You can build a credit rating. If you think you're moving to Australia and you want to be able to go live there one day, or America, it's really advantageous to build a credit rating. You can have diversification. One of the things I love most is that I started investing at 22 offshore, and I've got properties in 4 different continents, and absolutely it's such a nightmare trying to manage it. Emails, management agents, rates and taxes, the lawn not being mowed properly, and now really for me with the platform, it really changes the rules of the game. And then finally, peace of mind of knowing what you're doing. I think a lot of people, some of the other financial advantages are that Plan B insurance policy. So, a lot of people invest knowing that that at least they've got a Plan B. My wife said to me on the weekend, what do we do if we have to leave? Well, worst case, we just go to London and move into our house. possible immigration option, depending on the country you invest in, between Australia and America, you can actually look to invest in an asset and actually help you get your immigration. And a good example of that is one of our board members, Martin, that has just told me today he's moving to America. But he started this process with us over 3.5 years ago. He started buying houses, then he bought medical buildings, then he did EB5, and now he's moving his whole family to America. And then, quite frankly, you get comparable returns in the first world. I believe cash on cash, we're getting better returns in America right now than we're getting in South Africa. Forget the rand devaluation, like for like, apple for apple. In terms of why investing, overseas now, without kind of going into the whole Zuma and Pravin Gordhan thing, just some of the more macro things that I think are important is that you are still getting access to low asset values in some countries. There is a strong rand, even though you think it's devalued by a rand since a week ago. It's still at 13.50. People forget that less than a year ago it was at 16. Strategic investment approach. So again, if you have a strategic investment approach versus crisis management, you will be successful. Something about controlling variables is very interesting. We had a client called Brahm that I spoke to, and I'm not sure if he's online tonight, just yesterday, and he said, "Yeah, but I'm waiting for the best investment." I don't believe that best investment comes. I believe that what I learned from Ian Fife, that was the editor of the property magazine or the property section of Financial Mail, he taught me something. He said, I can't control Zuma. I can't control the rand. I can't control what the finance minister's doing. But I can control where I invest. I can control what properties I invest in. I can understand what the cash-on-cash return is. And so really what my wife and I agreed to do is control the variables. And rather than waiting for a great time when the rand is perfect or the properties are perfect, we just consistently invest in every property. Every single time a new property comes on the platform, we try and invest in it so that we can continue to grow a diversified global portfolio. There are great opportunities, and you need the capital to be able to unlock these opportunities. And something I don't quite understand, I know Andrew's online. I didn't find any details today, but Andrew was actually talking about the possibility of them actually pulling back on the whole foreign direct investment and personal allowance. At the moment you're allowed to move R1 million without any questions being asked, and it's effectively your overseas allowance. And then with your tax clearance, you can move up to another, I think it's 10 million rand. It keeps changing. But, you need to take advantage of that. Like in China, they just switched it off overnight. So who says that they said that you can do it tomorrow morning? Who says you can do it in 2 weeks' time? So, for me, that's a very simplistic graph. But, the rand over long term continues to devalue. The costs continue to go up, and our problems in the emerging world continue to widen. In terms of how much to invest offshore, I learned something, wonderful years ago from Clem Sunter. He said your percentage of happiness in South Africa is really, the rest you should invest offshore. So I used to be at 70% happy with South Africa, which meant I had 70% of my assets in South Africa and 30% offshore. I'm now 20% happy with South Africa, which means I've got 20% of my assets in South Africa and 80% offshore. There's no right or no wrong, but it's just a simple rule of thumb in terms of what you should do. Once you decide to invest offshore, who do you trust? Most people, like I said, have lost money. Most people have personal stories of losing money. And, these are the things that you really need to focus on. How do you make sure you don't have the wrong information in wrong areas? How do you understand what the purchase process is, that you don't lose deposits? How do you understand the valuations? How do you make sure that there actually are tenants and that you're going to get paid? A lot of these student accommodations up in Northern England, they're selling great courses at the moment. And, anyway, one of the better brands in the world is helping people. The only difference is I was investing in those markets 10 years ago, and there's a massive difference between a real yield and a paper yield. So the real yield looks, the paper yield looks really nice on paper, and it's all lacquer, and it tells you how much money you're going to make, and you're going to make double-digit returns. And then the real yield is what you actually get paid in your bank account. And that's why, I stopped investing outside of the M25 in England. Not because of someone's opinion, because I've personally done it, and I can tell you what the pros and cons are. Cash flow problems, maintenance problems, the wrong property for the wrong market. So again, a London estate agent's going to tell you London's good every day of the week, and they're going to try and sell you an off-plan development from a London developer. Quite frankly, I can prove to you the research that, that's not the right time. I'm not saying London's the wrong place. I'm not selling my properties, but there's a right time and a right place for every asset in every market. And then, selling and customer service is important. We don't get it right every day long. We make mistakes. I've definitely made mistakes. In fact, chapter 13 of this book, is all about the mistakes we've made and the lessons we've learned. So if you want to kind of learn from our mistakes and don't repeat them, then, go read chapter 13. And, when I update version 2, I will be going through all the new lessons that we're learning, because we're constantly learning lessons. Just a couple of things to look out for if you are looking to invest overseas. The first one is information. So if you're going to find a partner, ask them how much they spend on research and choosing the right markets. Just an example, do they pay for people on the ground? Do they pay for external research people? Do they have an internal researcher that does all the due diligence? And do they regularly get on an airplane? Just as an example for us, Wealth Migrate, Willie Ulfsa is come from a very high pedigree within the bank. He does all the due diligence for us. He does all the research on the different markets. We've got people on the ground, in terms of the likes of Richard Dunn and Paul Nadera in Australia and the equivalent in America, etc. And right now Michiel and Jaco are on the ground consistently doing research. So my question is, are you working with partners that are doing their work in terms of the information? Henny's was in Australia last week, by the way. With the partners, are they co-investors? Are they just trying to sell you something? Are you interest aligned? Are you co-investors? And I got questions down here, because there's a whole lot of questions that I've learned over the last 20 odd years, and that I've learned of people like Henny Besaidnout and many other very, very successful investors that I know to always ask in terms of finding partners. The rentals, yes, it looks good on paper, but how do you know that the actual numbers are? The local and international offices, it's really interesting. They'll tell you there's an office and there's one person on the ground, but what is their establishment? What's their track record? What's fascinating to me is it's not what happens when it's working, it's what happens when it's not working. I believe very, very strongly that a lot of people like to tell you the good stories. What about asking them what they did when the shit properly hit the fan? What did they do in 2008, 2009? Like for us, when Barclays pulled all the mortgages for our clients in London, what did they do? What was their track record? If you want to read about our track record, go read about it. It's all in chapter 13 of the book. Anyone that wants property going global, just type in their PGG or property going global, and we can actually send you a copy of it. And then the after sales questions, being able to ask the question, do they have an extensive team, the likes of Yanni and her extensive operations team, to really help out on the after sales and make sure it's smooth running. So anyone that would like a free report on the 5 things you need to know before you invest offshore, then stay online, because I'm going to share you. And don't invest with us. I don't care whether you invest with us or not, but please make sure you read the report, because it'll teach you how to invest. It'll teach you the questions to ask. It'll make sure that you're dealing with the right people. Then it comes to really asking ourselves a question. And having invested on 4 continents, we really asked ourselves the question. We said, well, why don't we just make global real estate investing easy? And we've got an incredible team, and they've worked incredibly hard. And if you go into the website, it's there. And if I click on login, I can just log in directly. And you can actually see here, I'm just going to log in live, so you can actually see me doing it live, so that it's not some sort of kind of gimmick or kind of back-end system. But what's really interesting is that we really set out a number of years ago. I wrote a dissertation in 1998 on how we could use technology to really enhance and improve the process. And we set out to really make global real estate investing easy. And so, I don't have a huge amount of time tonight, but I'm now logging in, and I'm actually sharing with you my own personal portfolio. So you can see here the breakdown and across the 4 different continents. You can go down into my funded investments. You can actually see the different places, the type of returns where I've invested, the breakdown between England, America, Australia, and South Africa. What's important here is if you go into any of them, if you go into Medical 2 as an example, you can actually log in. You can have all the information on the projects. You can go look at the project updates. You can get the quarterly distributions. You can get the quarterly reports. That's the same for all the different projects. So if I go back, I can go into my any of the other ones. If I just go into my fund investments, I can go into Medical 3, and I can do the same thing. I can download all the reports. I can see what's happening. Complete transparency in terms of what's happening, and it doesn't always go according to plan. But if it's not going according to plan, we can update people, and it's all in one place. I don't need to read emails. I don't need to watch out for emails and those horrible things where I've missed paying my rates and taxes or something along those lines. Then what's awesome for me is the wallets. We've the South African one is literally ready to go now, and also the pound-based one. anyone that's had any experience investing overseas will know what a major nightmare it is to go overseas, try to set up bank accounts. It's even worse to manage bank accounts in multiple countries. And now you can literally fund your wallet. You can go in here, you can click on fund your wallet, you can choose your accounts, you can look at the different ways to be able to do it. You can literally, there's a whole lot of different ways that you can fund the wallet. You can use international money transfer. You can use Paygate, which is coming soon. You can even use BitPay. So if you know what Bitcoin is, you can actually be able to, use Bitcoin now to be able to move money overseas. And you can fund your wallet and then you can put it in. Now, the reason I've got so little money in my wallets is that, for me, I want to be able to, you can see obviously all the transactions and everything else, but I want to, I don't like leaving my money in there. It's a Barclays account. I don't like leaving my money in there. I want to be able to reinvest it in the project so that I'm making a return. But I can do it. And then the last thing is the securities. I can go in here. I invested $10,000 in this development in Brisbane. It's actually on a regulated, listed exchange. So I actually have the tracking number. You can go on Bloomberg or any one of the other systems, and I can actually see that it's listed. I can see the fees. We talk about the thing with Tony Robbins and fees. And, I'm not going to go tonight, but I mean, if you are interested, it's all built on blockchain as well. So you've got complete transparency. You don't have to trust Wealth Migrate. We never actually touch your money. The money goes into the listed exchange. It's all audited by PKF, one of the top 5 accounting firms in the world that manages all that money transfer. We actually never touch the money. The securities are listed on the exchange. But what we've done is built the platform so that people have complete transparency in terms of what are they investing, what are their returns. They know what they're getting. And really, if you think about it, it's cutting out the middleman, it's cutting the costs, it's increasing the trust and transparency, and it's also increasing the accessibility in terms of where we're at. So, really when one looks at it and one comes to it, and I can also show you, just by the way, if you look at my portfolio here, I can do this off my cell phone as well, which is probably the part I like most, because I can actually go and manage my entire kind of portfolio off my cell phone. That's why we've got a picture there with a desktop and a cell phone. But really now it can be done in minutes. It's easy to create true global wealth. You get access to quality partners. You get access to the best opportunities. And the best part is that you can invest from as little as $1,000. And for me, that's really, really significant, because ultimately, it really drops the barriers to entry for people. And there's a great story of one of my friends in Dubai. I've known him for over 10 years, and he invested in 2 projects in America, one in Australia, from his couch in Dubai. The whole thing took less than 10 minutes. So if time is your most valuable asset, then you no longer have to worry about that, because you can literally invest, set it all up, have it all working and operational in less than 10 minutes. And really what it means is that people don't have to worry about the hassle, the management issues, the complex global tax structures. They don't need to worry about any of that anymore. All they need to focus on is the best returns. And just in my interest, here's my portfolio on my cell phone. You can actually see it. I don't know if it's coming through clearly, but anyway, I think you get the point. You can manage your portfolio. And if you like to show off, if you're a wealth partner, as an example, you can actually show your friends how you're being a global citizen in terms of where we are. There's a couple of steps that are really easy here. You would go online, you would register. Again, there's compliance steps depending on what country you come from, but you would effectively register. You would select an investment. Again, we're not offering you advice. It's not a fund, not a REIT. We're not offering you advice. You get to choose what investments you want to invest in. They're direct property investments. You can transact online. And then, like I said to you, the part I like most is that you can manage it online, whether it's from your dashboard or from your mobile phone. In terms of, just some of the things that are different here, the old world was very slow, it was costly, it was inefficient, and it was expensive for clients. And what I mean by expensive is it directly impacts your returns, whereas the new world is faster, cheaper, better, and it gets much better access to returns for clients. And what people don't understand is that the reason we've been able to drop the minimum investment further and further down is because of cost. And ultimately with technology, you no longer have to have one-to-one relationships, which is why most people only want to deal with the wealthiest of the wealthy. With technology, you can have hundreds, if not thousands, of relationships online where people can get access to the right type of information, and that allows the smaller investments. From Wealth Migrate's perspective, we've now got users from 80 different countries and investors from 17 different countries. So, we very much are helping South Africans, but it's not only South Africans in terms of, around the world being able to invest in first world assets. As I said to you, we've got users from 80 different countries. We charge on average around 5%. We've had a 250% repeat users. So on average, an investor will invest on average 2.5 times. We have a reinvestment rate of over 70%. We've had $54 million through the platform. We've done 827 transactions on the platform. We've paid back, it's probably over this number now, but about $2.5 million. Well, it's certainly coming up to the quarter, so it'll be over this, now with the quarterly distributions. We've got a team of about 50 people, which are based in multiple countries with major operational offices in Cape Town and Centurion. We've got investors from 17 different countries, and we believe that we haven't even touched the top of the iceberg in terms of what's possible here. Just some of the accolades that I think are important is that, we last year in November, we won the KPMG Global FinTech Top 50 Companies. We were the only company in Africa in the top 50 and one of only 2 in the top 100. We've got over $100 million in assets, which our partners have under management, specifically in medical, in different parts of the world. And like I said to you, we've got a 70% reinvestment rate, which is something I'm really proud of because we must be doing something right on behalf of our clients. A lot of people will know us and have heard of International Property Solutions, which is the company I started in 2004. We've helped over 2,500 people invest internationally to a value of over $2 billion. We only focused on international investment. We've got offices around the world, and this really amalgamated and joined with Wealth Migrate to really provide the global platform. We spend millions on research every year. We've got best-of-breed partners in specific countries. We've got a sophisticated IT platform. We've got an experienced after-sales division, access to off-market opportunities, and we were actually the very first company in South Africa to join AIPP, which is the Association of International Property Professionals. I'm also CRS qualified, which is the most highly prestigious property accolade you can get in America, along with my honors and master's degrees in the space. And I mean, it's not about me. We've got far more intelligent people that are part of the team. I have mentioned this already, but the platform is digitally integrated with a regulated listed exchange, which ensures the compliance. If you do want to know more about that, we actually are a juristic rep with the FSB. And if you are interested, we can give you all the understanding of how that actually works in terms of being compliant within the jurisdiction of the FSB here in South Africa. We've got over 20 years of experience of creating global partnerships, and we've got $3 billion at the moment of pipeline out of USA, UK, Australia, and South Africa. And then really when it comes to the team, I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail, but there's some very key people in very key positions with a huge amount of experience, and this is just some of the leadership team. We're not taking into account, obviously, the full 50-man team. We did hear you from the webinar last week, that we are going to put the full team up on the website. Linda asked, what about UK inheritance tax? So you need to be very careful in terms of UK tax, particularly capital gains tax and stamp duty tax. Lila, I can go into that in a lot more detail later, but I will talk about it if you're interested. Just some of the board members that I think are key. I think this is something that really differentiates us. Is that Justin Clark is the founder of Private Property. He's built marketplaces in 16 different countries. Martin Freeman is one of the top fintech entrepreneurs in the country. Paul Nadira is one of the most respected people globally when it comes to compliance. He's the CEO of our Australian operation, and very much on the board at the global compliance level. Dr. Dolf de Roos is the president of the organization. Many of you will know him for writing the book Real Estate Riches, which if you don't recognize is this one here. Many of us would have started actually using this. I did when I was 19, and he heads up the whole education and one of the more recognized international investors. Henny Besaidnout and Peter Venstra are two of the most respected property people in the country here in South Africa. Both made a tremendous fortune out of both development and commercial investment, and they head up our investment committee, making sure that we invest in the right things. And then Lex Cisney and Joyce Scoffler are both American, helping us with regards to the whole technology side and continuing to build a world-class platform. I'm not going to go into this in a huge amount of detail. I can share this, and we can actually put these slides up on SlideShare. But really, the old process was very there was a huge bottleneck. You had all the different players trying to get involved. The barriers to entry were really difficult. It was really difficult from a learning perspective and equally, from a fees perspective to get access to good quality opportunities, which is why most people in the middle class went out and bought houses. Locally, probably within a couple of kilometers of where they live, because that's all they knew. what we've really done is really break down those barriers to entry, really open up the process. And I don't have time tonight to go into the details, but really kind of give people access, both institutional quality, investors, high net worth professionals, and middle-class investors. And with time, it'll be the retail investors who will get access to the best opportunities. Our business model is pretty simple. I'm not going to go into this in a huge amount of detail, but, on the demand side, you're getting, really high-quality access to the tools to help you make the right investments. On the supply side, the best, partners and the best opportunities are getting access to be able to deal with global investors. And our thing is to continue to build the platform out, which helps them enlist and ultimately invest. So again, these slides are available if people want to go and read them in more detail. In terms of the question I always get asked, and we probably don't ask enough of it, is, how do we make our money? And what's important is that we earn on the front end in the region of 3 to 5%, depending on the different deals. And it's all very transparent. It's a fixed amount, and then every deal you get involved in, you can see exactly what it is. And then we have a future earnings, which is a participation where our interests are aligned, where we actually, the majority of our fees are actually earned on the back end, which is a performance fee based on achieving the hurdle rate for a client. And what's really, really important here is that we don't try and make huge fees on the front end. We make no fees in the middle, and really it's about incentivizing our interests on the back end. So a lot of people want to know how we make money. It's very transparent, and we can share it in terms of, and it's, it's no different to an Airbnb, where they earn a flat fee on the front end. And when I rent out my house here in Knysna, and we got guests tonight, I know that Airbnb is making 3%, which is completely transparent, and I'm happy because of the service that they're offering. These are all the complexities that are actually involved in doing what we're doing, and a huge amount of detail. And again, I'm not going to go into this detail, but again, if you really want to know, all the steps that are involved and how we've done it, it really kind of breaks down between the investors, the marketplace, and the real estate investments, and all the steps we had to go through on the back end to build out the systems. At a simple level, we're really trying to build out trust. So it's all about really trying to provide an extra level of trust so that people can really understand what they're investing in and trust the parties that they're investing with, but also have the right selection. Being able to get good quality access. A lot of people say, why South Africa? Well, in the last week, it is a tough question, but quite frankly, we listen to our customers, and a lot of people wanted to invest in South Africa. So with our platform now, you can have the ability to play global monopoly. You can invest in South Africa, America, England, Australia. You can manage it all on your platform. And then ultimately, all the e-commerce functionality really is the convenience. There's two types of properties, and I did explain this earlier, between the income and the growth. And there's, on the income side, it tends to be an investment in an existing building where you're getting quarterly returns, whereas, and on the growth side, it tends to be a new development where you're investing and you're going to get paid in whatever the term is on that particular building. It might be 18 months, it might be 3 years, but it just gives you an idea. We always have two umbrellas. The one is the income side, the one is the growth side, and then they come in under the different categories: residential, commercial, industrial, medical. So I think that's enough for me. Let's just get some entertainment going here. I want to see, where do you want to invest? Which countries do you think are the right countries to invest? And in terms of where we actually are and what is actually going on. So give me your feedback here in terms of where you think the right places are to invest around the world. While you are doing that, I'm going to talk to you. We've got detailed investment reports, and I did show you on the platform earlier where they are. Once you've all voted, I will close the poll, and you'll just get a sense of the type of reporting in terms of the market, the areas, where the opportunities are, why the opportunities are there. If you've put in there other, please just write in where other is, so we can actually see. So I'm interested what countries you're interested in. So I'm going to close out that poll. Thank you for voting. I can see lots of you are active, and you can actually see now the type of reporting that we've got in terms of clients and being able to get access to information. So I can see Naren is interested in Canada as an example. I told you already, we've got large pipelines of developments. America is a very big place, so we're not just saying America per se. We're looking at specific areas, and as an example, medical is something we're very strong in with a huge kind of track record. Henny's been doing medical since 1992, and depending on the different countries, we believe that you've got to be in certain sectors. And again, you need to know where to invest, what to invest in. You need to understand when to invest, who to partner with, and what structure to be able to put it in. And these questions, get quite complicated. And, if you want to kind of read a PPM, and an investment philosophy from us, this stuff is all online. So I'm not going to go into the detail, but, a lot of feedback I had from clients is, what's your investment philosophy? How do you guys actually work? What is the breakdown behind it? And, a lot of people don't know this. A lot of people, even internally, and our wealth partners don't know this. But, these are some of the investment philosophies that Henny and I created right in the beginning when we conceptualized Wealth Migrate. And we really built it on three major, core values, which is trustworthiness, transparency, and alignment of interests. Our three core values are trust, transparency, and alignment. And, on the basis of that, we came up with 10 core standards. And, if you get to know us, everything's about this. So focus on income, in-person visitations. There's a reason Henny's just been to Australia and Michiel and Jaco right now are in America. Unanimous investment committee decisions. Our best of breed partners will be, they actually have to invest in all projects. Our projects must pass the internal due diligence income test. So that means that, as an example, on 0 to 1, one of the things Henny spoke about was, what happens if the world is not like we expect in 3 years and you actually invest and we can't sell it and we need to rent it out? Will it pass the income test? Will it make a decent enough return to hold in the medium term so that we can ride out an economic rise or fall in the economy? Will the investment have a unique angle? We always like to look for a value add so that we're not just riding the economic market, but we're actually looking for opportunities that really, where we can add capital uplift. Strategic investment by management. Can we look at, one of the things Jaco's doing right now in America is, how can we consolidate all the single family homes that we've got and start to cut the costs? Monthly updates and transparency through the platform. Returns, only based on external valuations. So it's not, my opinion that the building's worth 20 million and I'm going to pay myself a fat performance fee. Only external valuations will allow that to happen. And then really dedicated on the focus to creating global wealth, both for individuals and for the world at large. So, a lot of you might not have seen this stuff, but this is all the back end DNA behind who we actually are. This really conceptualized through into GIDS, which is our global investment due diligence system. And, this is helping people to know where to invest, when to invest, what to invest in, who to partner with, what financial structure to set it up in. Once you decide which city to go in, which property, the due diligence factor. And, tonight I'm not going to go through this. You can really get, more information on this if you are interested. But, how do you choose? How do you choose if you should be investing in America right now? Is Trump a problem, or is he an asset? How do you know if you should be investing in England? Is Brexit a problem, or is it an asset? How do you know if you should be investing in Australia right now? Are properties overvalued, or is there good opportunity? How do you know if you should be investing in South Africa right now? Warren Buffett says when there's blood on the streets, that's when the real opportunity lies. Is now a good time to invest, or is it a bad time? But rather than making gut feel or relying on the press or the stereo or your friend's opinion, we went back, and years ago, I've been following Clem Sander for many, many years, and I took his whole scenario planning and I created a 4-dimensional model, which was really the foundation behind GIDS. And he was so impressed by it that he actually agreed to write a foreword in the book. And, there's over 40 different global leaders that actually endorsed this book. And I don't know if you're interested in version 2. I've always said I'd rather run Comrades back to back than write version 2. But I'm getting a lot of people asking me for version 2 with the update on what we're doing and where we are. So, for me, what's really important is that, when I say to you, how do you do it? Well, we take into account all the different global scenarios for Clem Sunter. And, I think it would be awesome if we could have a webinar with Clem Sunter and get an update, which is something we're working on. We then, put that into a global wealth index, which is a basket of goods. Again, I use the stuff that's in my book on purpose. So again, I need to update this, but it tells you a global wealth index. It shows you the impact that the currency devaluation is having. It shows you where to get all the best research. Who here knows where to get the best research around the world? Most people don't know this, but I've been doing this for 18 years, like I said to you. And over the years, you kind of get to learn where the best places are to invest. So, I'm just showing you on the screen here, you should be able to see, but, who says that it's best to invest in South Africa? Looking at this, South Africa is the best by a long way. In the green, you've got England. In the light blue, you've got Australia, and in the dark blue, you've got America. But then we look at prices in real terms, and now South Africa is not quite so attractive anymore. Or maybe it's actually very attractive. Maybe it's very affordable. Prices against average income. You know, according to this, America is the best place to be investing. Price against rents. You know, according to this, you know, both South Africa and America have just gone through the equilibrium in terms of where we actually are, and then the percentage changes. So, you know, again, are you using the latest research, or are you using gut feel? If you're investing in America, you know, should you invest in Atlanta, New York, San Francisco, or, you know, maybe what's another one? Let's go Dallas. I know that Michiel and Jaco right now are in Texas. You know, should you be investing in New York and San Francisco, or should you be in Atlanta or Dallas? You know, because for me, it's not about gut feel. It's not about opinion. It's based on the numbers. You know, price in real terms. You can see why we're in Atlanta and Texas. You know, price against income. Again, you know, just breaking through the equilibrium. Look at where we've been investing over the last 4 years. Look at the value creation. Price to rents. And the percentage change. What about London? You know, a lot of people are like, oh, London's the place to go. Let's take away Scotland. Let's go the northwest, which is where if you've got a rich dad, they'll help you, you know, tell you where to invest. And what's interesting is, yeah, you can look at the research again, and you can look at it in price in real terms. And people always tell you London's the #1 place. You know, price against mortgage and income. People want to know why property prices have gone up in England so much. Do they think it's because there's, you know, really good solid fundamentals? Or do they think it's just because there's been massive influx of overseas capital trying to find a safe haven with very, very low interest rates that are 350 years since the Bank of England started, the lowest they've ever been? Do you think there might be a need to change that at some point in the near future? Income multiples and percentage changes. So I think you get the point in terms of understanding where to get the best research. Now, but what do you do with that research? You know, do you just have a thumbsuck, or do you actually put it into models, helping you know where to invest, when to invest based on scenario planning? Do you know which countries to invest in? Do you have fundamentals and understanding? So, you know, again, if this stuff's interesting to you, we can have further webinars going into all the detail. But these are all the back-end metrics we use. This is our 100-layer multi-system, which we look at to choose the right cities. So we've got country stats, we've got province stats, we've got suburb stats, we've got transport, education, property analysis, property features, external building control, internal building, investor analysis, and ultimately it gives us a score on our indexing. Now some of this stuff is still done in an off-market environment, but we're wanting to build all this into online algorithms within our GID system. This is the REAP system that's used by, you know, was invented by Dr. Dolf de Roos to choose the best properties with the best returns. What about our due diligence checklist? Who would like to get their hands on our due diligence checklist, which has been built by Henny and Peter Fenstra and Alan Kynock and many other very, very sophisticated commercial investors? You know, this stuff is very proprietary, but whenever we make investments, this is all the stuff that we're checking against to make sure that these properties are the due diligence is being done right. And really, when you look at our track record, it's really interesting when you consider the timing, because if we were an English estate agent, we'd just be selling you one market. We'd be telling you why England's always good and why you must invest in England now. And yet we're not that. We're investors, and we help investors invest by, you know, it's a platform, you know, for investors, by investors. And you can see our track record. You can see when we started in Australia and equally when we stopped. You can see when we started in England and equally when we stopped. You know, so I started in England here, I stopped here, we started again here, we stopped here. Some would argue with me that I got it wrong and that I missed this climb here in England. You know, I'm not sure. I think it's overvalued, and I think we've done far better in the US. And then what's really fascinating for me is that, you know, we were in America in April 2012. The bottom of the market, the entire bottom of the market was August 2012. We started investing within a 3-month period of the bottom of the market, and in terms of the market. So, you know, if you get it right in one country, it's a fluke. If you get it right in 3 countries over the last 15 years, I think that we must be doing something right. And you know what some of the important thing now is when you look at wealth preservation, which is what I spoke about earlier. And Dimitri, no, unfortunately, can't get access to our due diligence because it's all our proprietary systems. What you can do is you can join our inner circle, and you can learn while doing. So when you do the investments, you'll actually be able to kind of learn while doing and understand. It's something we're building out. So if you're interested in Inner Circle, type in the Inner Circle. We're never going to give out that proprietary information, but we will get access to people to be able to learn while doing and see how we do what we do. I mean, this is the collaboration of over 200 years worth of international property experience coming together and building out these systems. If you look at the results of wealth preservation, if you had invested the exact same amount of money in a South African house versus an American house, you would be 424% better off. You know, if you invested the exact same from 1978 to last year, if you'd done it in Australia, you'd be 499% better off if you invested in Australia. If you'd done it in the UK, you'd be 332% better off. And, you know, my question is, if you had a crystal ball and I could take you back to 1978, which was the year after I was born, how many of you would like to know this based on long-term stats? You know, what happens if you, rather than investing the majority of your money in South African property, you invested it in a mixture of UK, Australian, and American properties? This would be your portfolio now. And so this is what I mean by wealth preservation. And again, if people are interested in the Inner Circle, just type it in there, and you'll be able to learn while doing. You'll be able to literally see us in action. We don't sell coaching courses, we don't sell books, even, quite frankly, but we do sell. You know, well, we do help people invest, and through the investment process, we want them to learn. What about track record? You know, these are some medical buildings, and you know, this is one that we started investing in 2014. We projected a return of 8.3%, and we've to date got a return of 8.82% per annum for the investors over the last 3 years. This building here, 11%. We've been paying a cash-on-cash return of 11.28%. That's in US dollars. That's not taking into account capital growth or rand devaluation. That's purely a cash-on-cash return that's paid on a quarterly basis to investors. This one here was 8.3%. We've been paying 8.48%. Now, just remember, what were the amounts of the REITs and funds in America? What were the cash-on-cash returns? Can anyone remember? I did tell you earlier, and if you compare it to all our buildings, over $100 million worth of buildings, I'm showing you our performance here. What were those returns that I told you the REITs are making? There we are. Well done, Michael. 4 to 5%. Naren 5%. Andrew 4 to 5. So that's right. So you know what's the difference between 4 to 5% and over 8%? The way I calculated it, it's a 75 to 80% difference, which will have a material impact on your bottom line. This one was an 8%, and you know, currently paying an 8.18%. So you know, just as an example, you know, these are two properties that are actually closing right now. It's one of the reasons that Michiel is in America. I actually invested personally in this project. You know, it's a multi-family, basically 252 units in Texas. You know, it's paying a cash-on-cash return of 7.9%. It's got an internal rate of return of over 19%. And what this, you know, ultimately allows, and Henny and I have been trying to buy these since 2012, where you buy the entire apartment, so you can, you know, you're in control of the management and maintenance. The only reason we weren't able to buy them is that the institutional investors came in, and the prices were really kind of skyrocketed. The cap rates were really compressed, and we couldn't find the right partner to be able to execute on them. So, you know, for me, what's really important here is that we found the PPA group. And as an example, if I go back into my portfolio here, and I just go quickly to here, you can actually go in and you can see these properties. You can go and read all the information. You can look at the pretty pictures in terms of the actual returns. So, you know, existing properties, and you know, this is the one. No, this one here. You can actually see in terms of, you know, the multi-funded, and you can actually go into it and look at the properties. You know, in terms of Medical 7. You can get a feel for the properties and go and read and learn all about them. And both these projects are closing out now. I mean, there's videos. You know, I think you get the point. So if you go on the platform, you can get quadcopters. I know that Michiel and Jaco are there now. Trying to use my quadcopter, and equally they built I think they bought a 3D camera so that people can start seeing it in virtual reality and everything else. You know, the medical buildings, you know, we're always looking for good quality medical buildings. Again, the institutional investors are getting actively involved, And, you know, it took us over 9 months to find another good medical. You know, so guys, if these are opportunities, they're literally closing in the next week or two. But if, you know, you're concerned about where the rand is, you're concerned about the future of South Africa, you know, my attitude with this stuff is why not participate? Why not dip your toe and get started and really get a feel for what's happening? You can see this is paying a cash-on-cash return of 8%, an internal rate of return of 13.5%. And you know, if you're on the webinar tonight and you want to invest from, you know, $1,000, you know, the minimum is $10,000. But if you, for some reason, there's absolutely no ways you can invest $10,000 but you want to get started, you know, just make a comment there, like, you know, about the $1,000 or something, so that someone can actually talk to you. Because I really want to help people who are on this webinar. I really want to empower South Africans to be able to take action. The most important way to get peace of mind with what's going on in the country is know that you've got a solution and that you're working towards it. You know, in the pipeline, there's EB5 projects coming on, so there's the ability in America to invest $500,000 and get a passport, a green card. I do know that they're talking about putting that up to $1.3 million. So if this is something of interest to you, you need to really kind of watch the space. There's a couple more multi-families coming on. We're building out a great relationship with the PPA group. There's some medical buildings coming on in Australia, although I know that Henny's just been there and there's been some complications. So, you know, watch the space. And for those of you who met with the property whisperer, old Warren Ebbett, back in October, the most successful Australian property REIT, and we're very excited. We're going to have one of his projects coming online in the next couple of weeks. So again, if you're interested in that, watch this space. Lots of exciting stuff coming on. I think this graph, you know, gets quite complicated in terms of money and, you know, where to invest. But in simple terms, you've got the investor here. You know, they invest their money. It goes through the marketplace. We manage it. We don't actually touch the money. It goes into an escrow account. It then buys the property, which is a partnership with the developer. And effectively, you know, the profit gets paid back to the client. The carry, which we've spoken about, would get paid back to Wealth Migrate. You can see the transaction fee there. You know, we're doing the due diligence and the monitoring. And if it didn't go ahead for any reason, that money gets paid back to the client. So, you know, again, it's here. You can watch the recording if you want to go into more detail, and or you can ask, you know, one of the investment managers, you know, in terms of what you think. So just quickly, I want to launch a quick poll. You know, you've seen a couple of investments tonight. What are you interested in? You know, what are you interested in? A single-family home? Are you interested in an apartment in Australia? Are you invested in medical, commercial? Are you interested in multi-family? Are you interested in new developments? You know, obviously in terms of the value chain. Are you interested in EB5 or other countries with passport-related properties? You know, give us a quick vote there and tell us what you're interested in. And while you're doing that, you know, the question a number of you will be thinking is that if you're online and this is the first time you've heard it, you're probably saying to yourself, well, it sounds too good to be true. And I guarantee you that there'll be many people thinking that. I know Michael Honeysett's online tonight, and he thought it was too good to be true. In those days, to come on a buyer's trip, we had a deposit of 20,000 Rand. He kind of phoned me up and said he didn't have 20,000 Rand, which, you know, I remember laughing because I was thinking, well, it's going to be a bit of a problem if you don't have 20,000 Rand. To come to America and you're coming to invest. But you know, I think Michael will be the first to attest that him and I in those days came up with a deal, and you know, he came to America, and I think he'll be one of the first to attest that it was one of the better things that he did for him and his family. And so be careful, you know, with that nagging thing that it's too good to be true. You know, what's really important is that you do your due diligence, you do your research, go out there, you know, Google it, read books, find the right information, but also make sure you don't get analysis paralysis. And you know, one of the things I love about the platform now is you can dip your toe. You know, we had a client recently that wanted to invest 3 million Rand, and you know, and they said, oh, it's a huge risk. And I said, well, don't invest 3 million Rand, invest $10,000. You know, get started, prove that it actually works, and as you get more, you know, experience, then you can invest more. You don't have to do everything tomorrow morning. You just have to get started, and I think that's one of the things that's most important. And you know, there are buyers. We do buyers trips. If you're interested in a buyers trip, write it down. Buyers trip. You know, and you can go to Australia, you can get on the ground, you can meet the partners on the ground. If you want to go to America, write down USA buyers trip. We've got clients that are currently there right at the moment with, you know, sitting with Michiel and Jaco on the ground, learning, you know, literally seeing what's happening on the ground. So, you know, literally, and, you know, a couple of the wealth partners have actually put up their hand there, you know, investors that are part of the team and have been around for a while. You know, if you want to go online, look at their testimonials. And if you want to speak to a few people, we can randomly, you know, give you different clients to talk to, you know, because I know Andrew Cooper is one of them who just put his hand up there. He also looked at us for a couple of years and wasn't sure. And it's perfectly, natural, not to trust. It does sound too good to be true. And that's why we take all the time to educate people. We take people on buyers trips. We completely transparent so that they can start to understand what we do. Something my uncle taught me as well is, what's the worst case scenario? You really need to be able to understand what is that worst case scenario, and how do you actually manage that worst case scenario. And when we went to America, there were things I looked at, like the currency. What's the worst case scenario? Yeah, you wait for the rand to improve back to 12.50. But what happens if we get junk status by a couple of other rating agencies? I know tonight we possibly got some good news, which is fantastic short term. But what happens if it all goes pear-shaped and the rand goes to 20, or the other way, basically? These are things that you need to be able to calculate and work out. What happens if the tenants move out and you have no one paying the rent? So these are the things that, for me, is why we've gone the commercial route, so that we've got a lot more security, and even on the residential side, why we're going with groups of houses and apartments, so that we can blend those risks. People ask me the question, what happens if there's an atom bomb in America? It could happen. So then we've got to look at it and kind of see what, or a tornado, or what happens if there's a drop in interest rates? Or right now at the moment, I think the one that's much more important is a rise in interest rates. So what does that mean? And Cliff asked, what's the good news? One of the ratings agencies didn't downgrade us or upgrade us. They just put it on hold till the actual time that they're supposed to review it. Like, I was quite surprised with S&P last night, because I didn't think it happened quite so quickly. So, just in my interest, give me an idea of the type of quantum you want to invest, between kind of, if you were interested in investing, whether it's local or international. I put it in dollars because dollars is the international currency. But just let me know there quickly, because it's also interesting for us to know which sector of the market, from a sophistication perspective, we want to be focusing on, and how we can be facilitating and really helping people in terms of where they actually are. So, I think really for me, it's really important that you understand all these different risks. And if you read my book, you'll see that I spend a huge amount of time in my book actually talking about how we can actually manage risks, and how you look at risks, and how you define risks in terms of where we are. So I'm conscious of time. I'm going to jump through a couple of these. I'm not going to answer these. But if you really want to get together with one of our investment consultants and you're asking these questions, then and just whether I say America, Australia, England, South Africa, then I wouldn't be surprised. I've helped over 2,500 people invest internationally. I know the type of questions that they normally ask. So I want to go to America to choose the right investment. Perfect. Why not go? But I can tell you from a huge amount of experience that you'll get a lot more value by going on a buyer's trip and actually having a planned schedule. I'm worried about management and maintenance and investment property. It's so far away. What can I do if there are problems? Well, it's a valid thing. Again, talk to one of the investment consultants, how we get around that, how we manage it, and how we can provide you with solutions. What happens if the tenants don't pay my rent? How can I pay my mortgage? Well, one of the things we've now got on the platform is, how can we actually manage that? How do I get a mortgage? What happens if the interest rates go up? So this is, again, depends on the different countries and how difficult it is, in different countries. If America is so good, why is it being sold in South Africa? Well, it's not being sold in South Africa. We are South Africans helping people, become global citizens, and our people are on the ground right now finding good opportunities. And again, remember, we co-invest with the locals, whether it's a local in Australia, a local in America, a local in England. Why should I do it now? Well, hopefully I've covered that, in more detail. But if you want to talk to an investment consultant, just type in the investment consultant if you want to talk to an investment consultant. Surely it's cheaper if I deal directly with the Americans, or even if I buy in America from someone directly. We don't add any costs on. We are investing with you. Our dollars are invested next to your dollars, and they're treated the exact same way. So there's no extra costs in terms of actually doing this, whether you do it on your own. I can guarantee you, though, that you will probably get a far better deal by working with us and partnering with us, because we've got access to far better networks than you just being able to do it on your own where they've never met you before. There are lots of companies. How do I choose? That's a great one. There's becoming more and more, and I guarantee you with the news over the last week, there'll be even more. So read that free report on the 5 things. Who here would like that free report? Again, trust us, don't trust us, but please make sure you get access to the free report. Why should I look globally? Aren't there better returns at home? Well, You know, that's a question I've been asked for the last 10 years, and hopefully over the last 10 years, people are starting to finally realize, you know, the difference between these things. So you can see that I'm sure that a couple of these objections have come up in your own head, and you know, we've dealt with many of them before. So my thing is that the only stupid question is to not ask the question. You know, there are no stupid questions. Just ask whatever question you're interested in to be able to, and we'll be able to help you. If we don't know the answer, we'll find someone who can give you the answer. But I think what's really, really important is that you do take action. And you know, you've also got the question, do you work on your own or do you work together? And we believe a lot in nature's laws. You know, a bird flying in a flock, you know, saves 20% of the energy. It can fly 5 kilometers faster, and a bird flying in a flock of 25 birds can fly 70% further than a bird flying on its own. And you know, the principle I take from this is really what I learned from Dr. Dolf de Roos, which is, you know, you can go fast if you want to go alone, but you're going to go far if you go together. And with technology, for me now, it's getting super exciting, you know, in terms of people being able to participate. And also considering how, you know, property is, the barriers to entry are getting lower and lower and lower. You'll see I've got a poll up at the moment with regards to time frames. But, you know, as the barriers to entry come down, there's no reason why people can't participate and get actively involved. You know, I can see 19% of people want to get, you know, involved right now. You know, there's good opportunities. I don't know where we will be in 3 months. I don't know where the opportunities will be. I don't know where the rand will be. You know, rather do what my wife and I have done, which is invest in the actual opportunities that are available right now. And if you're worried that there might be better opportunities coming, well, then don't invest your whole financial fortune. Get started, though. At least you'll have a peace of mind to know that you've actually, you know, making progress. You know, so you can see here the picture of the birds, and, you know, Wealth Migrate's really been created on nature's laws in terms of where we are. So in conclusion, you know, to build a great marketplace, to build a great platform like an Uber or an Airbnb, there's 5 things you need. You need the right people. You know, and we believe that we've got a market-leading team, both, you know, globally and locally. You need the right platform. You know, the platform works. It's built. We've got plenty of clients that are using it, you know, thousands actually. And, you know, I highly recommend that you go online and try it. We've got access to supply, you know, with the likes of Henny and Peter Fenstra and Michiel and you know, the guys on the ground in the different markets. We really have institutional grade assets. From a demand perspective, we can continue to grow the marketplace. We continue to drop the minimum barriers to entry so that we can really let people participate. And then as a company, we really try and grow sustainably. It's all about the customer and providing great service to the customer. And, you know, my request to you tonight is, you know, would you recommend us to your friends? Do you think that this would be something of value to your friends? Because for us, it's all about the customer. How can we add more value to the customer in terms of where we're actually going? And I think what's really, really important is that, you know, please answer and be honest. You know, some people are saying yes, some are saying no, and some are saying, what's in it for me? Well, if you're asking what's in it for me, we've got a very strong channel partner, and you can actually help people invest and earn money from it, and it's completely transparent, and equally it's a client for life. So if you're interested in channel partner, just type their channel partner, and Melanie will get hold of you and really be able to help you. So, you know, for me, it's you know, my question is, we're all about adding value. I haven't tried to sell you anything tonight. I really just want to be able to share with you so that you can learn. But, you know, this whole journey started back, and I've got a couple of minutes and then I'll finish and I'll take all the questions. But, you know, this journey started many, many years ago. As a young boy, I loved Monopoly. And, you know, really, you know, for me, it was growing up, and it was playing Monopoly, and how could we do it? And we as a team just really said, well, why can't we just make, you know, this Monopoly game real life? Why can't we let's just turn it into a global reality? We also are very passionate about the wealth gap. We're very passionate about empowering people. And when you grow up in Africa, and particularly South Africa, you know, you're always seeing the poverty. And the only way that we're going to solve Zuma and the antics of Zuma is actually about empowering people. It's about empowering the 99%. It's about giving them access to wealth so that they too, you know, can make educated, informed decisions for their families, and not allow this populist thing. You know, I told you about these numbers. 12.9% of the world's population has access to real estate, and yet 49% of the world's wealth is held in real estate. And really what fascinates me is that less than 1% of people actually retire at the age of 65 wealthy. And that's because they're doing something different from what everyone else is doing. They are investing in good quality assets, commercial assets generally, in first world countries, And most people don't have access to that. And, really, we're changing that. With technology, we want to give access to the 99%. Our vision is to make global real estate investing as simple as a swipe of the finger, from as little as $1. And we're not there yet. But people say, why $1? And we believe that $1 can change people's habits. And if we can change people's habits, we can change their lives in terms of where we actually are. Our mission is to help the 99%, invest like the top 1%, create more financial freedom in their lives, and ultimately to put smart investing in every single person's pocket. And, what does that actually mean? Well, Nelson Mandela said, money won't create success. The freedom to make it will. And, from our perspective, we really wanted to bring down those barriers to entry. When I was in Bondi Beach with Henny and Peter Fenstra back in 2009, I needed 5 million Australian dollars to be able to participate with them. If only I had, because that property's gone on to be listed and worth hundreds of millions of dollars on the Australian Stock Exchange. But I didn't have 5 million Australian dollars. But what we did have is the ability to build a technology platform. And so now with the technology platform, we've brought that minimum investment from 100,000 to 10,000 to 1,000. We're really excited to be launching South Africa in the next couple of days and weeks, depending on what's happening, locally. But, at 1,000 Rand. And one day we'll get it to $1, where we can really empower people. And we believe that the opportunity in Africa and other emerging markets is really important, because it's not a nice to have. It's not a fad. It's a necessity. People need solutions. And we South Africans are surrounded by negativity right now. And it's our job to go out and empower people. What most people don't know is they don't know what a family office is. And family offices are out there to help the wealthiest of the wealthy continue to build generational wealth. They look for global opportunities and they marry it together with investors' individual, personal needs. And really, from our perspective, we call that smart investing. When you take this is a picture of my son. He's just turned 5 years old. He's playing global Monopoly, and he's learning at a very young age that to buy, green hotels and red houses and earn a passive income off them is what we call smart investing. His dad, with an incredibly intelligent team, has built a platform now that allows his father to play global real life, global Monopoly in real life, and with diversified between real estate that is both residential and commercial, that is in both England, America, Australia, and South Africa. So you've got both currency diversification, you've got asset diversification, and really it's what the wealthiest of the wealthy do. And when you look at the top 1%, it's all about freedom. It's all about creating generational wealth. And that is what we call smart investing. And our goal, our vision, our dream is to put smart investing in every single person's pocket. And like I showed you, there's no reason why, every single one of you online tonight can't have access to a platform and a portfolio like this. So just in terms of some of the next steps, register online. It's free. Okay, if you register online, you'll get access to the 3 white papers. So the 5 laws of building wealth through real estate. If you're a beginner and you want to learn how to make money out of real estate, then that white paper will teach you how. The 5 keys to offshore real estate investment. So I spoke to you about it. That's how, if you're at an intermediate level, if you're a South African and you want to invest offshore now, that's the one for you. And if you're highly sophisticated, the 4 ways to expand your global real estate portfolio through strategic partnerships. You'll get access to that. You'll also get access to my book, Property Going Global. And, really, you'll get access to Dolph, Dr. Dolph Tarus, and a number of videos, which are called Discussions with Dolph, if you sign up to the platform. You'll come to our events. So we've got a number of events. Next week, I told you already, we've got James Painter's webinar. The week after that, we've got one of our Australian partners talking about what's happening in Australia, how to immigrate to Australia, what the opportunities are on the ground there. I've helped many, many people invest in Australia and immigrate to Australia. I know how to do it, and I can share with you how to do it and what to do. And then also in May, we're looking at putting on live events. Now, my question to you is, do you want to do breakfasts? Do you want to do lunches? Do you want to do a full day workshop where the likes of myself and other people share for the entire day? Do you want to do evening sessions? What would suit you? How can we add more value to you in terms of real life events, basically? If you go online and register in the next 24 hours, so anyone who registers in the next 24 hours, we will actually give you a $100 coupon, which will allow you to invest in Australia, America, We don't have a UK project at the moment. And yeah, so that's for anyone online tonight and everyone who stayed till the end. Good on you. So if you go online and register, you'll get $100. If you're already an existing member, we can actually share $100 with you. And, an existing investor, maybe pass it on to one of your, best friends so that they can participate. If you want to be an investor, you can actually start from as little as $1,000. And then on some of the more, the projects that are closing out right now, Medical 7 and the multifamily, the Cypress multifamily in Texas, I personally invest in both of those. The minimum investment on those is $10,000 because they're closing right now. But if you do want to speak to an asset manager, just type in there Medical 7 or Cypress, and someone can actually get back to you and help you. But most importantly, start your journey to investing globally. Start your journey to not only investing in South Africa, but investing globally in terms of where you actually are. And so that's all from me. I've got a huge amount of questions here, and I want to launch just some polls quickly. Would you be more interested in some more webinars? Who do you want me to interview? Maybe just type in there who you'd like me to interview. Do you want to hear from Clem Santa again? People last time said Tony Robbins. Certain people that I'll be working on. We've got live events in May. Would you be interested in that? We've got a wealth weekend, which is for our wealth partners. So they're the shareholders in the platform. They're the people that can see that technology is going to disrupt this real estate game completely, just like Uber did to taxis or Airbnb did to hotels. And they want to be part of that game. They're what we call our wealth partners, and effectively they're shareholders in our platform. And we hold a wealth weekend at least once a year. It'll be in June with all our wealth partners and some of our international guests. Do you want coaching by Dr. Dolf de Roos? The guy that wrote Real Estate Riches. Would you like to actually be coached one-to-one with him? Or would you like to be part of the inner circle and learn while doing? Or would you like to become a wealth partner? It's not for everyone. It's by invite only. There's quite a strict scrutiny process as to how you would get involved. But would you be interested in that? I can see only 31% of you have voted. So I'm going to quickly, guys, let's vote quickly. I know that the time is up in terms of people, but just quickly vote in terms of stuff that we can add more value to you on between webinars and live events, the Wealth Weekend, being coached by Dolf de Roos, or becoming a wealth partner. And if you've got any other ideas as to how we can add value, please hit us with it. The whole purpose of why we shared tonight, and I spent so much time preparing for this, and so many of the team tonight have been online helping, is that we really want to add value to you. What about, just look here, I've got a couple more questions. With South Africa and everything that's happened in the last week, what I'm fascinated in is, would you be interested in investing in 0 to 1? So 0 to 1 is the tallest residential building in Cape Town. It's going to be one of the most iconic buildings in Africa. And I'm interested. We were having a debate today with everything that's happening. We're really excited about launching South Africa. We're passionate South Africans. We obviously understand that this is not a great time in South Africa's political history. But that future, I'm fascinated, particularly from you wealth partners. Please get online and if nothing else, even WhatsApp me. What are your thoughts? Would you be interested in investing in one of the most iconic buildings in Cape Town from as little as 1,000 Rand? Previously this was only available to people with 10 million Rand, and now we've made it available to people with 1,000 Rand. Would you be interested? Or are you categorically against South Africa? Or like some people here, need more info? So I'm quite interested, quite intrigued, because we're obviously debating whether we should continue. We're supposed to launch it tomorrow, by the way. So the South African platform is due to go live tomorrow, and I'm fascinated. And if you go online, you might find some nice surprises for those of you who actually want to invest and get access to it. What about a competition we're looking to run? So we're looking to launch a competition at the end of this month where anyone that is actually a user on the platform will actually be able to win an apartment in 0 to 1. And every single person that you refer, if they sign up, we've got a tracking mechanism, then you'll get an extra entry in the draw. Would you actually like to win an apartment in 0 to 1? So one of the most iconic buildings in Africa, right in the heart of Cape Town. Some would, as Michiel said to me on the plane today, he was on the plane, but he phoned me and he said, people see a big difference between Cape Town and the rest of South Africa. Would you like to let your friends know about it? It's obviously much easier to let your friends know about winning an apartment than it is about possibly investing offshore, you know. And then finally, just the very last one that I just wanted to ask you was, you know, how can we add more value to you? And you know, is it more education? Is it to have a coaching course? Is it to speak to Scott? You know, I get questions all the time on Facebook and LinkedIn. You know, would you like to have a session once a month where I'm online and possibly some of the other key players, you know, depending on what the questions are, and we don't actually come with a PowerPoint. We literally just have a Q&A. And you ask anything you want, anything about our philosophy, our strategy, what's worked, what's not working, how we've done stuff. You know, I'm quite keen on doing that because it then, you know, creates an environment where you can say to people, "Well, come along and we'll do that." You know, do you want to come on a buyer's trip? You know, we stopped kind of doing buyer's trips for a little while because of the whole digital thing, but we noticed that a huge amount of people are very, very keen, you know, to be on buyer's trips. There are people on the buyer's trip right now. Are you interested in the whole hassle-free product for those wealth partners online and RPS clients? You know, Yaku's making very good progress on the ground, and we're going to have a webinar once they're back and after Easter with the solutions to the hassle-free product, which will allow all the RPS clients to be able to reverse their houses onto the platform and ultimately be able to manage everything on the platform. So, you know, I'm just interested. How can we add more value to you? You know, you can probably see tonight that it's all been about value and how we can add value. So I'm going to close that out. Very interesting from an education, a coaching course. They ask anything, come on a buyer's trip. Okay, so I'm just going to close that out. So just while we've got this screen up there, you've got all our contact details and everything. I'm going to go through the questions here and see if there's anything I haven't answered. If you've got any questions, I've got nowhere to go. I'll stay here until I've answered every single question. So let's just see what I can help with quickly. JP, I know you're online, so if there's anything I've forgotten. Oh, there is something I've forgotten. Shit. I will send out a link. JP found a link on the impact of the junk status on the average South African. But again, I think tonight, without the focus, you know, we're not focusing on the negative, we're focusing on the positive. But I will send out that link in the email. So when we send out the email, please make sure we include that. Right, I'm just looking through here. I've answered what EB5 is. Lots of people want to hear from James Painter. So the good news is he's next Tuesday at 7 p.m. We've got lots of opinions on what people think is a global citizen. So thank you for all the feedback. Lots of people are saying who different people are that are global citizens. Okay, a number of people have asked to be on that webinar with James Painter. A lot of people asking for property going global. So again, just sign up as a user on the platform and you'll get it. The free reports, you'll get them if you sign up on the platform. Linda, you did ask about the UK inheritance tax. Like I said, you changed at the end of last year. I actually did a webinar with the guys from Grant Thornton. My understanding is it stands at 28.5%. It's either 28.5 or 29.5%. It's really important that you get inheritance and tax planning in the UK if you are investing, particularly if you're investing in residential property, which is one of the reasons we're looking at commercial property and in terms of where we're at. So Andrew said, can I get a copy of the presentation? Will be a big help. So yes, very much so, Andrew. And we'll make that available certainly to all the wealth partners. I'm not sure we'll make it available to everyone, but definitely to the wealth partners. Interested in Canada and Europe. So Pierre said it's important info, so I agree with you, Pierre, on track record. We're going to be getting that all up on the website as well. Can I get the due diligence? Dimitri, I did answer that. The answer is no. You can, as part of the inner circle, you're going to be able to really get an understanding of, how we do our due diligence. If you're interested in the inner circle videos, they're very, very useful to watch. Is there a minimum to be in the inner circle? So Wendy, at the moment, it's free. It will be becoming a paid-for service where it will be in the region of $20 a month, but at the moment it is free. Scott, again, this return figures we need to motivate. Yeah, okay, so we've been through that. New investment amount varies per project. Nick, it does vary per project, and it's got to do with timing and a number of other things. So as an example, the Medical 7 and Cyprus are closing out literally as we speak. We've got I think it's literally this week or next week. And so we've had to have bigger amounts, just because we're dealing, with individuals one-to-one. Whereas, earlier in a project, it can be from $1,000. But like I said, if you're desperately keen to get started with 1,000, then just have perseverance. I'm a big believer that perseverance gets you everywhere. Please will you send me more info on the green card investment? So Linda, we certainly can. Clint, I'm a South African citizen and have a US company. How can I use this to invest in US property? Clint, we can answer that through the LLC. There is ways of doing it. Which investments can one enter for smaller amounts now? So Maureen and Noray asked. Again, I'll get one of the investment consultants to phone you tomorrow. And depending on what you're looking to achieve, ultimately it's your decision. But they can help you with that. Boom, boom, boom. So the 5 questions for you just have to sign up. So Clint Dixon asked, I have access to several investment properties in the US. Can you look at them as an investment? Possibly, Clint. It depends on where they are in the value chain. Michiel and the investment committee would look at that. I can see a number of people are interested in the channel partner, so we'll send that through. Wouldn't it be nice at some point to be able to invest for someone as a gift? So Maureen, fantastic question. It's actually something that we're building out now on the tech space. So you can actually give people investments. And the other thing that's really exciting is we're nearly close to being able to help people that are under 18 invest. So like my son, I can get him to invest in all these things. We've got full day workshops, evening events. Once invested, what are the terms of the process for selling and getting your money out time frame? It's a great question, Stefan. It depends on the project. So again, if it's a growth project, it'll be 18 months to, as an example, 3 years, depending on the project. If it's an income-producing asset, it tends to be a 5-year hold on capital with quarterly payments with an exit strategy agreed up front. Although what's quite nice now with the listed exchange is that we are creating a secondary market so that people can, can actually get in and get out. But again, it's still not the liquidity of the stock market yet. Okay, then Linda, the team will get hold of you. Please can I share a coupon with a new customer? I'm an existing user, but would like to share a coupon. So Mariette, very much so, we'll get someone to get hold of you. In South Africa, I use the bank's money to invest in property. I've invested on a platform with what cash I have. How do I leverage the bank's money for overseas property? Can I sell locally? So Martin, it's a great question. We are leveraging the bank's money. In any of the projects, we are 65% on average LTV. So we are using the bank's money. The only difference is that our partners on the ground have much better access to cheaper credit than you and I do. So you are very much getting loan to value, which is why the cash-on-cash returns are so competitive. A lot of people want Clem Santa, a lot of people want James Painter. Dolph DeRus is interesting. Love the webinar. Already in love with 0 to 1. Of course, I would love to win. Buyer's trip sounds out of reach. Yeah, well, Maureen, just in my interest, if you want to be on the digital buyer's trip, just just type in their digital and we can actually send you guys the link and you can sign up on the digital and you can actually watch the videos and the updates from Michiel and Jaco on the ground. Lira said yes to the webinar with David. Not quite sure what that means. Would be great to have a copy of the presentation. Lee, I'll sort that out for you as well, partner. How do we part of the inner circle? Yeah, Dimitri, so we'll give you information on that and when you said on Medical 7. So it looks like I've managed to get to all the end of the questions. Just some of them, I think, on the inner circle, we will I will share with you some videos on the inner circle and some of the opportunities we can share that. It's something that we're actually building out and are going to continue to build out so that people can learn while doing. And then, obviously on the projects, etc. But guys, I just want to repeat, if you go online in the next 24 hours before 5 o'clock tomorrow, so if you've listened to the recording between now and 5 o'clock tomorrow, anyone that signs up as a user on the platform tonight will actually get a $100 coupon towards your first investment. So, if you're investing in Medical 7, as an example, you'll get $100 to be able to invest. So it's a good initiative to take action and get started. Maureen says, thanks for that. Would like to link. Okay, I'm not quite sure what you mean by like to link, but you know, the website's easy if you just go to wealthmigrate.com. If you need to email someone, Jason can help you. If you want to SMS someone, there's a number there. You can send an SMS right away, and we can deal with it. If you want to go on Twitter, you've got it. YouTube, you've got both the Wealth Migrate one and my personal one. I know it's a bit weird, it's Picken09. That's what happens when you set up YouTube back in 2007. And you didn't know too much about usernames, and there's no way to change it. But it's got over 800 videos, including videos with Richard Branson on Necker Island, etc. And then Facebook, you've got the Facebook page. Okay, so Maureen on the buyer's trip, that's perfect. You know, someone can chat to you tomorrow in terms of the different details. Are there any other questions, guys? You know, really tonight we've tried to look at how much value we can add. I've got a question for you that I would appreciate, and maybe you can give me the answers to this, is that, we're going through probably one of the most difficult periods in South African history since, those guys shot Chris Hani, back in 1992. And yet, what I find fascinating is we had a couple of hundred people online tonight, but, quite frankly, we should have thousands. And, I've got a lot to share. The team has an incredible amount to share. We've got a lot of kind of technology and good opportunities. What are we doing that we could do better in terms of building people's trust and getting the message out there? What do you think? Where do you think? How can we reach more people? How can we empower more South Africans? How can we let more South Africans know that there are actually solutions within their hands and that they don't have to go the traditional routes, which are laden with fees, and that they can actually invest from small amounts where traditionally it was only available to the really wealthy of the wealthy? What are your suggestions? How can we do it? How can we help more South Africans become global citizens? I would love to know. So, if you wouldn't mind just typing in some ideas there, because I really, I feel very, very strongly that our purpose is to help people, to empower them, to give them access to freedom, and ultimately to help solve that wealth gap. But, we also need to have the community, and I need your feedback as to what we're doing right, and equally, in some instances, maybe what we're doing wrong and how we can reach more people. So, yeah, please, guys, if you don't know the answer right now, sleep on it. Send me a WhatsApp, send an SMS to that number. Come on the different groups, come on social media and share with us. I'm just looking at some of the ideas. So Pierre said my referrals are so skeptical. I feel like going to visit them all personally. So, yep, Pierre, I understand the skeptical part. Like I said to you, it sounds too good to be true, which is why track record and everything is so important. Maureen says we need to be on Instagram. Maureen, thank you for that. I am trying to learn, and I pride myself on my ability with technology, but I've only been on Instagram for the last couple of months, last 2 months. And we've actually managed to get back our Wealth Migrate Instagram account because we're not quite sure. Only in the last week or so, and Dolph has taken care of that. Brian said, just keep on doing what you're doing. We need to get rid of the apathy and get going. Yeah, so if you've got ideas, client, we'd appreciate it. Clint says there's a trust factor, and with a bad exchange rate, most South Africans feel that it's pie in the sky idea. I understand, Clint, and that's why we keep dropping the barriers to entry and letting people participate. Jason says brand awareness. Ken says, can you disinvest from a property investment if I need access to my capital? Ken, it depends. So it depends on the property. We've had plenty of clients that have done it, but we equally don't want to promise it because you never know. Markets turn, and even if you're in the biggest funds and REITs in the world, back in 2008, 2009, they also put a freeze on those, those funds and REITs for up to 2 years. So, I think being a very experienced investor myself, I like to just kind of give people clarity around the pros and cons. And again, as an investor in direct property, you want to be trying to take a longer term view, which is why the rand doesn't end up making such a significant impact. Because I have no doubt in my mind that 5 years from now the rand will be less than where it is today. I don't know if that helps you. Okay, I'm noticing the time here. I'll stay online until kind of 9 o'clock. If anyone else has any other questions that I can answer. Clint, thanks for the kind words. Yep, we will keep on going. My father taught me a long time ago that when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And, you know, it is a challenge. You're changing people's mindsets and understanding. But, you know, we've got an incredible team, and I think the team's done an incredible job. And I really want to, you know, empower them and you know, for us as a team, continue to empower others to be able to deliver the service. Rob says, don't change too much. Zuma become available. What does that mean? Zuma, oh, it's going to do the rest for you. Yeah, no, fair enough. Maureen says, if I say invest an amount, can one invest an amount as funds, as other, if say I invest an amount, can one invest other amount as funds become available? Yeah, 100%. But it will be in different projects, Maureen. So same as me, you'll have then a spread portfolio, because every investment is a closed fence investment, ring fence, which is good because you don't want Peter, you know, what happens in most funds and REITs is that, you know, Peter will rob Peter to pay Paul, where, you know, good investment will rob from a bad investment, etc. So you want to have a diversified balance. Heather, thank you for the kind words to the different people that said it. Heather said, perhaps an explanation on how to choose the best available investment and why, e.g. IRR and the GIDS rating. Okay, Heather, very good feedback. I think it's something we're aware of under the FAQs, and you know, it's something my brother said to me as well. Clint says that Zuma has property investments in Washington, D.C. and a few other areas. I've got no idea, Clint. I don't pay a lot of attention to Zuma, but I wouldn't be surprised. Wendy says, where does your quarterly dividend get paid to? It gets paid into your wallet, which then you've got complete control of, and you can then either reinvest it, or you can you know, obviously pay it back to wherever you want it, whether it's a London account or an American account or a South African account. But I mean, that the whole idea behind the wallet is for you. I'll do it. Okay, so I'm going to finish off with a little story. I think we're getting to 9 o'clock now, and I really just wanted to finish off with a story of two brothers. The one brother was my uncle. The one brother was my dad. If you've read my book, you'll know what I'm talking about. The one brother, you know, left Zimbabwe in 1976, very concerned about the future and very much reacted, didn't have a plan B, came down to South Africa, went to Durban, was a farmer but couldn't farm in South Africa because, you know, we didn't have a farm. We'd lost our farms in Zim. And, you know, ultimately became an accountant, became financial director of Rainbow Chickens, gave my brother and I an incredibly good upbringing and a good schooling, but worked really hard all his life and was very reactionary. And unfortunately, you know, when he passed away, he had invested in the financial industry, you know, and my mother not only got back less capital than he had invested 10 years earlier, but obviously there was a dilution of fees all the way through the process. And, you know, really my uncle was the complete opposite. He was completely proactive. You know, back in 1980, he started investing at the age of 30 overseas. He invested in first world currencies and first world assets. And in 2003, when Zim completely fell apart, he was able to, 23 years later, make a very good decision for his family, according to him. And he moved to Australia. He bought his way into Australia at the age of 53. He bought a house for cash. He sent his kid to a private school. And right now his son's at one of the top universities in Australia. And all that was the difference between my father and my uncle, primarily, was those people that prepare ultimately have solutions. Those people that react end up having a very, very difficult life. And so, if nothing else tonight, the whole focus of this webinar was to empower you so that you too can make the right type of decisions. You too can prepare and empower yourself and your family to be able to go out there and have the freedom to make the decisions you want and not be reactionary to what happens in politics or economics, whether it's in South Africa or globally. And that's something that I feel very, very, very passionately about. And if you want to read the whole story, you know, go online, register as a user, and you can get access to my book. Right, I think that is. So Cliff Kite just said the account must be the same as the investor, so that's just in terms of where you get your money paid to. Clint said personal story. Now, Clint, if you really want to get into the details of it, I'd suggest you read the very first chapter of my book, where I showed my mother how if she had bought 4 properties in South Africa at a loan-to-value of 40%, how much better off she would have been, both from an asset perspective and an income perspective, versus the money my father put in the financial markets, which really kind of drove me as a youngster. And I could probably redo that now and show my mother how if she had invested in a blend of Australian, UK, and American investments, using a platform like we have, it would be a joke, the difference between the two. Maureen says, well, I came across your YouTube segments by accident and wish I'd found you earlier. So helpful and interesting. Thank you. I do hope for the nation. I do too. And yeah, on that note, I'm going to call it. Thank you to everyone who's been online tonight. It's always an honor and a privilege. To Milani and JP, who have been very quiet, but been helping behind the scenes, and Jenny that helped set it all up, and the rest of the team. We can't do it, without a team effort. And to the whole team, let's go on and continue to go out there and empower not only South Africans but globally. And to you that is online and come to learn tonight, I would really ask you to, if tonight's been of value to you, go out and share with people. Tell them that there's a new way that they can get involved. Stop getting, focused on all the negatives, and let's really go out and empower people and focus on solutions. And the next 6 weeks from our side at Wealth Migrate, we're going to commit to a webinar every Tuesday, which is all going to be about solutions. I'm tired of excuses. I'm tired of problems. I'm tired of Zuma, quite frankly. My flag is flying upside down as a distress signal, but now it's time to focus on solutions and empower people. So over and out from my side. Thank you to everyone. Good night, and see you next week.